Hello and welcome back to another week of Just Gay Stuff. I'm Lauren.
And I'm Jess. And this week we are practicing some self-care in the pod room.
Self-care in the pod room. I like it.
We are in our pajamas tonight.
Woo.
Well, while we're recording, you might be listening to this any time of the day. We don't know.
I mean, you could wear pajamas any time of the day.
I mean, that is
whatever floats your boat.
That is the ultimate right now.
Yeah.
Not that you would know that Lauren's wearing pajamas. It's just this beautiful grey shirt.
It's not beautiful. It's just jammies. My shorts match my...
I told her to wear her silly goose pajamas.
Yeah, but it would have washed me out. It's yellow and I'm white. They wouldn't be able to see me.
I bought them for you for Christmas because you're a silly goose.
I know. They're cute.
Anyway, we hope everyone's time has been better than ours.
Yeah. We've had a hard one.
It's been quite the tough time in our family as of late.
Yeah.
First, there was a bloody cyclone that hit Brisbane and the Gold Coast and
Bloody cyclone
Sunshine
Alfie.
Coast. And then we happened to lose a furry family member, which has really hit our family very hard, as I'm sure anyone who has a pet would know. It is literally like a giant hole missing from our household right now.
It is. And so we're in the pod lab and this also is Jess's studio, and it was Jess's studio first. And she's drawn this beautiful little picture of her and I'm looking at it right now.
I'll show it.
So cute.
I just want her to be everywhere where she used to be. So if you're watching the video, this is my little sketch of my little Belzy.
Little Beals.
Who I miss absolutely so dearly. And
She's watching over us now.
I just got to take her with me wherever.
Hey Bells, bring us all the pod love.
Yeah. So it is a bit of a sad time in our lives at the moment, but we wanted to still jump on and bring you an episode because we don't want to fall behind for you guys.
No, and we care about the community that we've made and the connections that we've made throughout doing this podcast.
So whether you're listening to us through a streaming platform or on Joy 94.9 FM or you're reading an article that we've written in Q News, thank you so much for all of your support, and especially in times like these where we really feel down, we are really appreciative of all the people that want us to keep making episodes because it really means a lot and it gives us a purpose in a time where you really do feel lost.
Yeah, like you said, a purpose.
Yeah, so that's why we're still banging on tonight in your eardrums about some gay stuff.
We are. I love some gay stuff here.
What are we talking about this week, Lo?
That's a fun... that's wrong. I was going to say that's enough talking time for you for now.
Thank you. I'll take it.
I'm just kidding. So we were I say recently, but
we talk all the time. We talk all the time.
Yeah. No, I was going to say we were recently at one of your shows because we've done episodes on queer TV, and queer movies.
We did Carlotta a couple of weeks ago. Who, fingers crossed, we're hopefully going to get on this show.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
At one of my shows, we had a friend say, "Are you going to do the beginning of queer music?"
And I was like, "Oh, that's a good idea." And then I was kind of annoyed that I didn't think of that.
Well, we had discussed doing episodes on queer icons, which obviously include queer musicians, but it really got us thinking about, well, who was the first queer musician that we know of and where did it all begin? So Lauren has done a very good research into all of these things and she's going to give us a little overview today.
Yes, that's exactly right. I'm going through exploring the first and most influential queer individuals who have shaped the music world because, the music industry is such a vast industry. It's so hard for me to go all the way back in time and to really, really pinpoint the beginning also. Yeah, in today's episode, we're taking kind of a deep dive into the history of queer people in the music industry, who the trailblazers were, who influenced change, and how they navigated the ups and downs of their careers while staying true to themselves.
Which, as you can imagine, we're going a fair way back, yeah?
Yeah.
So that wouldn't have been as easy as it is today. In certain circles, obviously, it's still not accepted or celebrated, but for the most part and the majority, if you're a queer musician in today's world, you are so celebrated, especially by the community itself, but still via a large range of people. It wasn't always like that. So you can imagine that back in the day, for some of these people in their careers, it would have been very challenging.
Yeah, very challenging. So now we all know about today's superstars, artists like Chapel Roan, which you were just singing her Pink Pony Club song before we got in.
Pink Pony Club is a jam. I don't care what anyone says.
It's such a jam. Lady Gaga, Troye Sivan, and Lil Nas X. But what about the pioneers who paved the way before those incredible artists?
Yeah.
we're going to take a little journey and I want to start at the very beginning.
And before you do that, for everybody watching the video, I want to show them my Lady Gaga tattoo because I have one on my arm. Oh, you can't really see it. Wait, you can see it there.
Yeah, there you go.
She's a babe.
And she just released her brand new album. Anyways, I digress as we're in the music. But when I say beginning, I am talking the beginning. The beginning. We're traveling all the way back to Greece around 630 to 570 BCE.
Now, we have slightly talked about this person before, and I was super surprised when Lauren brought this to the table as being the first influential artist. But I get it.
Yeah. You yourself as listeners may have known who this person is.
Oh, you'd know for sure, especially if you're a lesbian.
And you may have heard of her, the incredible Sappho. She was a poet and a musician from the island of Lesbos.
You know, that island that we talked about where all the lesbians go to party?
I'm still ashamed that that's not
Just kidding, that's not what it's about.
That's not actually a thing. She wrote passionate love poetry about women. Again, we mentioned this before. This is where we get the term sapphic and, of course, lesbian from.
From Lesbos.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Let's go Lesbos.
Let's go lesbians.
Though the music she wrote has unfortunately been lost in time, she was known to perform her poetry with a lyre. I didn't know what a lyre was, so I looked it up. It's kind of like a harp.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was like, that's so interesting. And I know that poetry and songs, like songs are a form of poetry anyways.
Sure. Especially like most songs rhyme and poetry rhymes. So, you know.
So, you know, she performed her poetry with
music.
Yeah. So there you go. Musician. But here's the thing. Much of her queerness and others like her during the time weren't documented in history. Mm-hmm. Queerness was often erased or ignored due to societal discrimination. So trying to pinpoint the very first openly queer musician is tough, as there are gaps and lost records that make it hard to track down.
And of course there would be. You know how we said in a couple of episodes ago, representation that you can't see because you didn't have the internet or you didn't have television? We're talking the same thing. How are you going to know about these people unless they're able to be visible to you in a community?
I also find it so interesting too. Like, think about the fact that there is no visibility. It's like scripture and ink and all that stuff. What are you actually writing
it's kind of
on?
Like, look at ancient Egypt. They made their paper out of papyrus and it's just dried leaves all strung together. And so that's how people used to document things in different cultures. And unless you have photographs or video evidence of queer couples together, we don't see it.
Yeah. I thought that was a very cool place to start, that we're starting with the lady lesbian herself. I just coined that because I don't know if anyone else has said that.
Lady lesbian.
All right. So now we're jumping a little bit ahead to the 1800s, but stay with me because we're going to Russia.
Okay. Somewhere we don't really want to go.
No, we don't really want to go. And it's very interesting because, you know, obviously still today Russia is quite a conservative.
Well, yeah, it's a communist country. There's a lot of things going on there.
Yeah, we won't get into that.
No.
This is not a politics podcast, even though we've
not
touched on it. This is going to be hard to say.
Tchaikovsky.
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
Tchaikovsky.
That's it.
Yeah.
Only because I've heard of him before.
You have?
Yes.
And majority of people would have heard of him before.
For sure.
So we, of course, are talking about the talented Tchaikovsky.
You did well.
Did I?
Yes.
Peter Ilyich Tchaikovsky.
Gee, you even got the in there. You did well.
Was one of the most celebrated composers of the Romantic era. And though his queerness was kept in the shadows during his lifetime, his influence in the queer music world is undeniable. He lived in a time when homosexuality was criminalized in Russia.
Isn't it still
I was like,
criminalized in
I
Russia?
think it still is.
I think it still is.
His influence in the queer music was undeniable. He lived in a time when homosexuality was criminalized in Russia, and his personal life was shrouded in secrecy. But scholars have uncovered personal letters and diaries that reveal his romantic relationships with men. One notable relationship was with Edward Zach, his student, and the death of Zach deeply affected Tchaikovsky. Another was with Alexei Apukitin, a poet, and with his nephew, Vladimir Davidov, who he adored.
That is also very complicated.
Yeah.
And not something we are going to talk more about. Let's leave that there.
Yeah. But it wasn't just about the relationships. Tchaikovsky's music, though never explicitly queer, carries a deep emotional weight that many believe reflects his struggles. Take Swan Lake, for
That's
example.
why I know Tchaikovsky.
Yeah,
Swan
you
Lake.
You knew the name. I was like, the minute I say this, you would know.
Yes.
Take Swan Lake, for instance. It's filled with the themes of transformation, love, and tragic fate. Mm-hmm. Some interpret it as an allegory for hidden desires. I had never thought about that before with Swan Lake, but that makes sense.
Don't ask me, I've never seen it.
I am not surprised.
Ballet's not for me. You know how
it's not always ballet though.
What do you mean? Swan Lake is a ballet.
It is, but it's not always a ballet. And his symphony number 6, Pathétique, I assume that's French. Pathétique has a mournful final movement that many consider to reflect his inner emotional turmoil. His music has been reclaimed by the queer community, making him a queer icon in classical music. His resilience in such a repressive era has inspired generations of queer musicians.
Wow.
His other notable work also includes The Nutcracker.
That's why. So if anybody like had a little light bulb moment being like, I know what Tchaikovsky is, but I don't know, like I did. There you go. Swan Lake and The Nutcracker.
All right, we're keeping our time machine set on the 1800s for now. But we're crossing the ocean and landing in one of the most vibrant and soulful and culturally rich cities in America. Without looking, could you have guessed what it is?
Absolutely.
Even though you saw it, but...
Absolutely, because when we were talking about this, I said to Lauren, the birthplace of most music in America was New Orleans.
Yeah. So that's where we are. We're in New Orleans.
You almost said New Lawrence.
Well, I mean New Orleans, New Orleans.
So in New Lawrence.
No.
Look at Lauren just like branding herself all over the place.
Known as the birthplace of jazz and blues, this city has a deep and complex musical history, shaped by diverse influences, struggles, and groundbreaking artists. But beyond its famous brass bands and smoky jazz clubs, New Orleans also holds an incredible yet often overlooked legacy of LGBTQIA+ musicians who helped define these genres.
You can imagine, especially in blues music, some of those songs are so soulful because it's blues, it's meant to be sad.
Sad, yeah.
So you can imagine that some of these songs and the people singing them were really singing from things that they weren't allowed to do.
Yeah.
And love that they weren't allowed to have and things like that.
Yeah, in researching it, I think this was my favourite part to really look at the jazz blues era, but I love a good jazz blues moment.
Yeah.
So. While it's difficult to pinpoint the very first queer musician in the city's history, given the secrecy and societal restrictions of the time, there we go
You
again.
weren't going to know. Like, no one was going to come out and be like, I am the first queer.
Yeah. There were several pioneering artists who not only left an incredible mark on music, but also quietly and sometimes boldly pushed boundaries for queer performers in an era where living openly was super dangerous. Mm-hmm. Aren't they all? Mm-hmm. One of the earliest known figures was Tony Jackson, 1876 to 1921.
Wow.
A virtuoso pianist, composer, and singer whose talent was unmatched in his day. He was openly gay at a time when such openness carried serious risks, yet he still managed to captivate audiences with his electrifying performances.
Cool.
Jackson was known for his sharp fashion sense, flamboyant charm, and extraordinary ability to transform any piano piece into something magical.
Wow.
He penned the timeless jazz standard Pretty Baby and was a mentor to none other than Jelly Roll Morton, one of jazz's founding fathers. So he was the founding father of jazz's founding father.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
I had to take a second.
It in then.
Yeah, I had to take a second.
I was like, crazy. His presence in New Orleans' music scene was legendary, proving that authenticity and talent could shine through, even in the face of societal constraints.
Yeah, well, that's essentially what the blues was all about.
Yeah.
And especially blues singers were a lot of African Americans who didn't have the same rights as white folk. So, they had a lot of sadness to sing about.
Then there was Bessie Smith.
Bessie Smith.
Yeah, 1894 to 1937. The undisputed empress of the blues. While she wasn't originally from New Orleans, her performances there were instrumental in shaping the city's blues culture. Bessie was larger than life, her voice, her stage presence, and her fearless attitude. She was openly bisexual and had relationships with both men and women, a fact that was well known in the entertainment circles of her time. Interesting. Her music delved into the themes of love, loss, and resilience, and her impact on blues was unparalleled.
I wonder if she copped any flack from like fellow musicians or if it was only because it says she was openly bisexual and openly dated men and women.
In her scene though.
Yeah, so I wonder if her scene was like fellow creatives who were the same as her, like they were kind of sexually fluid.
That's like when we spoke about in the Carlotta episode, we mentioned how Carlotta found solace in the theatre, essentially, and because a lot of people are quite gender fluid or fluid in sexuality in the theatre world.
And they say you gravitate towards your people, you know, so
you find your tribe. Another powerful force in the blues music was Ma Rainey.
Ma Rainey.
1886 to 1939, known as the Mother of the Blues. Ma Rainey frequently performed in New Orleans and wasn't just a pioneer musically. She also defied social norms with her openness about her sexuality. She didn't shy away from addressing same-sex relationships in her music, with songs like Prove It On Me Blues hinting at her attraction to women. Her influence extended beyond her own performances, and she ran a traveling music troupe that included LGBTQIA+ performers, helping to create a safe space for artists who might have otherwise been pushed to the margins.
Wow. We're not even reached the 1900s yet.
No,
I mean,
we're about to. If we fast forward a bit, we get to Sister Rosetta Tharpe. I don't know how to say that bluesy though.
Sister Rosetta Tharpe.
Oh, okay. No, it doesn't have the same ring to it.
It doesn't.
No. 1915 to 1973. A name often credited as the godmother of rock and roll.
Wow.
That's cool. While she was primarily known for her gospel-infused electric blues, her performances in New Orleans were legendary. She was musical revolutionary, blending sacred and secular sounds and influencing artists like Elvis Presley, Johnny Cash, and Chuck Berry.
Wow.
That's insane.
How many of you have heard of Sister Rosetta Tharpe? You hear of all these other artists that are influenced by these people, but it's very rare that back in the day you hear of the influencer.
And I feel like, unfortunately, like we've said, there was a lot of segregation and a lot of discrimination. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the people who pioneered the way, who were often coloured people, did get taken that away. And it was only the people like Elvis Presley or Johnny Cash who were the white.
Well, yeah, African American people were marginalised anyway.
Yeah.
So imagine being queer inside that. You're like margin within the margin.
Yeah.
That just makes it a whole other kettle of fish.
Yeah, exactly. But beyond her groundbreaking guitar skills, Sister Rosetta Tharpe was openly queer, having relationships with women, including singer Marie Knight.
Cool.
I want to hear what her guitar sounds like after this now. These artists weren't just making music, they were redefining it. They lived in a time when being queer was something society tried to silence, yet their voices, their instruments, and their presence refused to be erased. Through their contributions, they shaped the very foundation of jazz and blues, leaving behind a legacy that continues to inspire musicians today.
You know, I just wish that there was more education about that kind of thing. Like what we're doing now is telling everybody about these people. But I wish I'd heard of a lot of these people before now, is all I'm saying.
But especially for you as an artist, learning all this stuff now,
and I think
it's insane.
For me, I've never really, I'm not fussed about the sexuality of artists that I like.
No.
But it is really cool when you find out that some of these people paved the way for music and they were queer. That's awesome because
it adds that little bit of something extra, I feel.
Well, it's like,
just
I'm queer too,
cool.
and they were like me. That's awesome.
Yeah. When talking about the blues and its deep, complex history, there's no way I could do this episode without mentioning one of the most electrifying, groundbreaking, and unapologetically queer performers of the 20th century, Gladys Bentley.
I haven't heard of Gladys Bentley, but then I feel like my
your music
history,
style is not
this
though.
Yeah, no.
So you wouldn't have ventured into learning.
But my music style is also not Elvis Presley.
No,
but I know
not.
a lot about him.
No, I know. I knew of Gladys Bentley, but I didn't know heaps. But then I like jazz and blues, so
yeah. I mean, everyone's brought up differently, I suppose.
Yeah, a force of nature in both music and LGBTQIA+ representation. Bentley was a blues singer, a pianist, and an entertainer who redefined what it was to be a performer in the Harlem Renaissance.
Ooh, in Harlem.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where's Harlem?
Like New York.
Ah.
Mm-hmm.
In an era when queerness was often hidden in the shadows, she stormed onto the scene in a full tuxedo and top hat, belting out bold, suggestive blues songs while flirting with women in her audience.
I take it back. I do know Gladys Bentley.
The
I
minute
didn't know
I
that
said-
was her name, but I have this vision in my head. I've seen this on
You have.
television of this woman coming out in a full tuxedo.
You
and a
have.
top
I was
hat.
going to say the minute I read this, you'll
Yeah.
know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Born in 1907, Bentley knew from an early age that she didn't fit into the rigid gender roles expected of women. And instead of conforming, she made a name for herself by doing exactly the opposite.
Amazing. I love that.
Me too.
And so don't you think it's funny how we have all these gender norms that are supposed to be drilled into us, and all of these people are just well, I grew up.
They said, fuck it.
I knew I was different and I was going to challenge this.
Yeah.
It's not a case of they saw other people doing it and went, oh, maybe that's me. Like everyone goes on about today. Like
the television turned you gay.
We're all influencing kids. No, people literally are born going, I know I'm different than the social norm.
Exactly. She was a trailblazer of gender nonconformity decades before terms like drag king were widely recognized.
That's cool. So she was like the first drag king.
She was essentially the first drag king.
That we know of.
That we know of, yeah, exactly. Her performances at Harlem's legendary nightclubs such as the Clam House.
I love that. That has to be a lesbian club.
And the Ubangi Club. I don't know how to say that. I'm so sorry.
Ubangi Club?
Ubangi Club. I'm so sorry, American friends. We're nothing short of iconic. She took to the stage in sharp men's suits, radiating charisma as she commanded the room with her booming deep voice.
Wow.
While many artists of the time had to code their queerness behind subtle innuendos, Bentley was bold, altering blues lyrics to include references to same-sex relationships and singing about her desires in ways that left little to the imagination.
So she was very forthcoming.
She was like, I'm here, I'm queer, and deal with it, son.
Love that.
At a time when simply existing as a black lesbian was risky, Bentley didn't just exist, she thrived. She became one of the most well-known and highest-paid entertainers of the Harlem Renaissance, with the audiences flocking to see her boundary-pushing performances.
This is kind of the same as like Carlotta, right?
Yeah.
Carlotta was different, so people loved to see that and it was entertainment, and it's just unfortunate that the people who are willing to absorb the entertainment aren't willing to accept the person who's behind it.
Yeah. Her stage presence was magnetic, her confidence unmatched, and her music laced with humour, double entendres, and queerness that resonated with those who felt unseen. Oh, I love that. In a way, her performances were acts of resistance, public declarations of identity in a world that tried to suppress people like her. However, as Harlem's queer-friendly nightlife began to fade in the face of a more conservative America, Bentley's journey took a painful turn.
Oh no.
By the 1950s, wow, we jumped far.
Yeah.
By the 1950s, the country had entered the repressive McCarthy era, where the LGBTQIA plus individuals were increasingly targeted and demonized.
Oh, man. So it's kind of like before that, before the McCarthy era, while it wasn't norm,
it wasn't demonized or criminalized.
As much as it is like from the 50s onwards.
Yeah.
Wow. But we talk about that all the time, how in different cultures, like no one batted an eyelid until certain things came out.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. In a move that many believe was driven by survival rather than sincerity, Bentley renounced her past, claimed to have even been cured of her homosexuality, and even married a man.
So she felt like she couldn't be herself anymore.
Yeah, which is so sad.
Don't you think that's terrible? She was so open and bold and brave, and then because of society, they just put her back in a closet.
Yeah, it's shit.
Like you literally dimmed the shine of this person and made her do things that she wouldn't ever want to do. Like, does that make you feel good?
No.
That's horrible.
It's horrible. Whether this was a desperate attempt to shield herself from persecution or personal crisis of identity, it remains one of the most heartbreaking aspects of her story.
Definitely.
Even so, her legacy as a queer pioneer remains untouchable. Bentley paved the way for countless LGBTQIA plus artists who followed in her footsteps, from Little Richard's flamboyant performances to contemporary black queer musicians who continue to challenge norms today.
Wait, was Little Richard gay? Or you're just saying that her flamboyant performances?
We'll get to that.
Okay.
Though she was forced to retreat from the limelight in her later years, history has not forgotten her. She is now celebrated as a revolutionary figure in both blues and
LGBTQ history.
A woman who dared to be herself in a world that told her not to. Her story is one of triumph, defiance, and ultimately the devastating impact of societal pressure on queer lives.
Look, let's be honest.
That was a sad ending.
Let's be honest. The fact she came out and said she was cured of her homosexuality. We all know you can't cure homosexuality.
You can't cure it.
For one, it's not a disease that you need to cure. And two, you don't just like change a part of you that was so adamant from the beginning.
You can't choose how you feel.
Exactly. So I think that is so sad that she felt like she had to closet herself to escape persecution in a world where she was so free before. So like I said, don't dim someone's shine. That's horrible.
Yeah. I'm also like, what do you get out of it by dimming someone else's shine? Doesn't make you shine brighter.
I hate this saying, but I'm like, that's just the way the world was back then. And I fucking hate that saying, so nobody quote me on that. It's terrible.
As we move forward, let's explore some of the most influential queer musicians from the 1940s, 1950s and 1960s.
Okay, let's do it.
Artists who not only shaped the sound of their respective eras, but also navigated their queerness in a time of widespread societal restrictions. They always are.
Yeah, they always are.
In the 1940s, Billy Strayhorn, 1915 to 1967, made an incredible mark on jazz as a composer, pianist and arranger, best known for his work with Duke Ellington. Openly gay in a period when most artists had to remain discreet, Strayhorn crafted timeless jazz standards like Take the A Train and Lush Life.
I know the song Take the A Train.
Do ya?
Yeah.
There you go. That's who wrote it. Helping to define the genre's sophisticated sound. His legacy as one of the first openly gay black musicians in jazz remains a testament to both his musical genius and his quiet defiance against the norms of his time.
Of course. Oh, yay! Yay!
That's what I said. We'll get to it. Moving into the 1950s, Little Richard.
Yay, Little Richard.
To answer your question, yes. 1932 to 2020, exploded onto the rock and roll scene with his electrifying voice, flamboyant outfits and boundary-pushing stage presence. While he struggled at times with his queerness due to religious influences, he openly discussed his fluid sexuality throughout his life. His hits included Tutti Frutti,
Rudy,
originally featuring queer-coded lyrics. Long Tall Sally and Good Golly Miss Molly laid the foundation for rock music, inspiring legends like Elvis Presley, the Beatles and Prince.
Queer-coded lyrics. I'm just like, Long Tall Sally is literally about a woman. Good Golly Miss Molly, literally about a woman. But now I'm like, Tutti Frutti, well, he's being fruity.
Fruity.
Yeah, but like, he's still singing about women. Wow.
It's
You
fun.
would never have known. And I feel like my gaydar should have gone off because like when I studied music, we had to study from the 50s onwards. And like Little Richard was like who I had to study. And I never came across the fact that he was queer.
Well,
Looking back at what the performances I've seen of his, because you know, back then you don't know if it's like, are they
art.
queer or are they an art person?
Yeah.
Like, are they a creative? So
Yeah. His androgynous style and fearless personality helped carve out a space for queer expression in the genre. So it was really interesting. I don't know if you know this because I don't think you've seen this RuPaul episode and I can't remember who did it, but on one of the RuPaul episodes, one of the cast members performed as him in Snatch Game.
Oh, no, I have seen that.
You have seen it?
Yeah, Little Richard.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that has never clicked for me. That really has never clicked for me. But they don't always perform as queer people.
No. So we're just constantly learning things here on Just Gay Stuff podcast.
You know those times where you have memories unlock and it's just like one person says something to you and it's like memory unlocked.
Yeah.
I feel like all these little things are connecting in my brain.
Our little educational episodes are like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like Mandela effect. Like I think I knew that.
Yeah.
You know?
All right. By the 1960s, Sylvester, 1947 to 1988, emerged as a bold and openly gender fluid artist, blending soul, funk, gospel and disco in his work. I don't know who this person is.
I've heard of Sylvester, but I couldn't tell you what song he sings.
While his mainstream fame would arrive in the 1970s, his early involvement with the avant-garde drag performance group, the Coquettes,
Ooh.
in the late 60s helped redefine queer performance art.
Wow.
That's cool.
Yeah.
His unapologetic self-expression paved the way for future
LGBTQ
artists in pop and disco, and his later hits, including You Make Me Feel Mighty Real. Do you know that song?
No, I don't think so.
Neither.
Maybe if I heard it.
Solidified his status as the Queen of Disco.
I love that he was called a queen.
Queen of Disco instead of the Queen of Drag.
Love that.
Each of these artists not only transformed the music industry, but also challenged societal expectations, making them enduring icons of both music and
LGBTQ
visibility.
I'm wondering how many of our listeners know these people, whether you're into music or you're not, because
I didn't know a lot of these people.
But is that because of their queerness they didn't get as much exposure as maybe people that weren't? Or do you think it's just the history that we just don't learn?
I think a bit of both. I think because of their queerness, especially the ones way back when we were talking about, they obviously didn't have the social platforms and the stuff that we've the ways and the means to do it. But I think there was probably an aspect of the fact that they were queer that it wasn't showcased in our history.
Because you didn't want to shake up societal norms too much, probably.
Yeah. If we take a trip now to the 1970s to talk about a rock star who is truly ahead of his time, Jabriath, He was the first openly gay musician that was signed to a major record label.
Wow.
That's cool.
I've never heard of Jabriath.
No, which is really sad. Now, if you're a fan of glam rock, theatrical performances, and boundary-pushing artists, you may have heard of David Bowie.
As if you haven't heard of David Bowie.
Mark Bolan, or even Lou Reed. But Jabriath? His name doesn't even get mentioned nearly as much, despite the fact that he was not only an incredible performer, but a superstar in the LGBTQIA plus visibility in music.
Wow.
So who was Jabriath? Born Bruce Wayne Campbell on December 14th, 1940.
Bruce Wayne Campbell, so like Batman Campbell.
Yeah.
Wow.
1946. He was an American singer-songwriter, pianist, and actor. From a young age, he was drawn to music, but it was in the early 1970s that he truly stepped into the spotlight. Unlike many artists of the time who played with the gender and sexuality in the ambiguous ways, Jabriath was openly and unapologetically gay. He didn't just hint at queerness in his lyrics, he lived it. He was it. And that made him both revolutionary and ultimately controversial.
But see, people liked controversy.
They do.
But they didn't like realness.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I get exactly what you mean.
I'm not dragging us all the way to the 2000s, but I'm just saying like...
Lady Gaga.
No. I was going to say tattoo, right?
Oh, yeah.
So everyone loved that shock factor of like, oh, look at these two girls kissing in a music video. But then when I've seen interviews with one of them, she's like, if my son was gay, I would disown him. I'm like,
what?
Yeah, she's homophobic as.
But she was in a queer music video.
Oh, for money. They were gay for pay.
No.
And I'm just like, how terrible of you to have made money off being queer, only to say like, oh no, but for a boy to do it, no, I'll disown him from my family. Fuck you.
Yeah, fuck you. That's so sad. You just made everyone's hearts break then.
No, I feel like people that did the tattoo dive knew that already. They would have done what I did.
Yeah. In 1972...
back to Jabriath.
In 1972, he signed with Elektra Records, making history as the first openly gay rock musician to land a major label deal.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
That is really cool because in a time where that would have been, people would have stopped his records going on radio because of his gayness.
Mm-hmm. His manager, Jerry Brandt, saw Jabriath as the next big thing, pushing a massive marketing campaign that included extravagant billboards in Times Square and full-page magazine ads.
I'd love a billboard in Times Square, just saying.
Me too. His debut album, Jabriath, dropped in 1973, packed with glam rock flair, theatrical arrangements, and piano-driven storytelling. Many compared it to early Bowie and Queen, yet despite the hype, it didn't take off commercially.
Damn.
Why? Well, we kind of half answered this. Well, rock audiences in the early 70s weren't ready for someone like Jabriath. While Bowie and Lou Reed played with the bisexual imagery but left things vague, Jabriath was explicit. He openly identified as gay in interviews, something unheard of at the time, and his performances leaned into the androgyny and cabaret style of theatrics. The rock industry, still heavily homophobic, rejected him.
No shit.
Even the LGBTQIA plus community wasn't sure what to make of him. He wasn't the activist type, he was simply existing loudly and unapologetically.
I can see how the community would be taken aback by that because here they all are, not in the spotlight, probably trying to fly under the radar so that they aren't ostracized.
Yeah.
And here's this person like out there living his truth, which he can do, absolutely. But it's like that thing that we talked about, like, do you want to be the front runner? Do you want to add to the fact of why people dislike you?
Yeah.
You know, it's such a fine line.
It's so sad.
And we shouldn't have that fine line. You should just be able to be unapologetically yourself, but as we know, that comes with its own turmoil.
Yeah. His second album, Creatures of the Street, followed in 1974, but by then the buzz had died down. Elektra label records dropped him and Jabriath faded into obscurity, reinventing himself as Cole Berlin.
Wow, he just took like a way different name.
Yeah. He spent his later years performing in cabaret clubs in New York. Tragically, in 1983, he passed away from AIDS-related complications, largely forgotten by the mainstream music world.
Man, that's so sad.
But his story didn't end there. Decades later, artists like Morrissey, the Pet Shop Boys, and even Adam Lambert would cite Jabrayev as an influence.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah. I really liked learning about this, actually. Like you said, it's the influence that influence your artist, your favorite artist.
You never learn about the influencer of your people.
Yeah. His albums were reissued, and in 2012, the documentary Jabrayev AD reignited interest in his work.
That's so cool.
I need to find that.
I think that's also the thing, you know, regardless of the fact that maybe his work wasn't widely known to a lot of people, when you are an artist, you make your mark and people can still go back to all of the things that you did and achieve. Like, all of those things are somewhere in time, and I think that's so special.
Yeah. Today, we look back at his career not as a failure, but as a cautionary tale of what happens when someone is ahead of their time and a reminder of the resilience of queer artistry.
Yeah, totally.
Jabrayev paved the way for openly LGBTQIA plus musicians in rock, whether they knew it or not. He didn't get the recognition he deserved, but his legacy lives on. Artists like Lady Gaga, Mika, and the glam revivalists of today owe something to the path he carved out.
Wow, that's so cool.
That is cool.
I love it.
Now this one, I kind of half told you because you were so surprised by this.
One really surprised me.
I also was surprised by this. So
I love this, by the way, because I love her.
Yeah, me too. So to our community, this one might surprise you because we actually had no idea about this artist being part of our community until I started doing research for this episode. And that is Dusty Springfield.
I love that. I love Dusty.
Dusty Springfield was not only one of the most influential British soul and pop singers of the 20th century, but also an important figure in the
LGBTQIA plus
representation in the music industry.
Sorry, that sounded like such a robot.
It was. Born on April 16th, 1939 and passing on March 2nd, 1999.
It's so sad they're all so young.
I know. Springfield captivated audiences with her rich, emotive voice and unforgettable hits like Son of a Preacher Man and You Don't Have to Say You Love Me. However, beyond her musical contributions, she played a significant role in queer visibility during an era, again, when being openly
LGBTQ
could destroy careers. In a 1970s interview, Springfield candidly acknowledged her attraction to both men and women, a rare and risky admission at a time when queerness was largely stigmatized. Though she never explicitly labeled herself, her words resonated deeply with the queer community, making her an unspoken symbol of representation. Throughout her life, she had long-term relationships with women, including American singer Norma Tanega and later musician Carol Pope.
Wow.
Though she often kept her personal life private due to industry pressures. Her signature androgynous, mod-inspired fashion, marked by dramatic eyeliner, chic suits, and her iconic blonde beehive, only strengthened her status as a queer style icon. In the 80s and 90s, as queer visibility in pop culture grew, Springfield's struggles and resilience gained renewed recognition, and she became an emblem of authenticity for the LGBTQIA+. Her influence paved the way for future queer musicians such as Katie Lang and Elton John, proving that artistic brilliance and personal truth could coexist.
It's so important.
Inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1999, Springfield's legacy endures not just as a musical powerhouse, but as a courageous, albeit reluctant, pioneer in queer representation. Today, she remains an inspiration for LGBTQIA+ artists who see her as proof that authenticity, even in the face of adversity, can leave an incredible mark on the world.
And didn't you say in an interview or something, she said, I am just as likely to be won over by a man as I am to be won over by a woman?
Yeah, she is. And I do have that quote somewhere there.
Oh, okay.
Not in this.
I just paraphrased it. That was not
in
verbatim.
this script, but I will send you the quote. I was really shocked about that one, so that was really cool to learn.
Well, so many people know about Dusty Springfield and know who she is, but how many people knew she was part of our community? Like, I didn't. Speaking of community, no discussion of queer history in music would be complete without honouring the legendary Freddie Mercury. Oh, Freddie.
We miss Freddie. I know that my mum got to see Queen and stuff, but I'm so mad that I wasn't alive at a time where I was able to see Queen.
Well, you were alive. You were just one.
Yeah, well.
Because he passed away in 94.
I just couldn't go, okay? More than just the electrifying frontman of Queen, Mercury was a trailblazer whose influence on rock music and the LGBTQIA+ culture remains unparalleled.
Mm-hmm.
Born Farrokh Bulsara in 1946, I said that so well.
You did.
He possessed an extraordinary vocal range.
Because of his teeth.
Yes, I knew that. I knew that one.
Because he had 2 extra molars.
Yeah, and he would never let dentists get rid of them.
Mm-hmm.
because of his cool singing.
That's like me being like, don't take my wisdom teeth out. They help me sing.
Literally. His operatic performances, dramatic flair, and larger-than-life charisma helped Queen produce some of the most iconic anthems in history. Bohemian Rhapsody, Somebody to Love, and of course, We Are the Champions, just to name a few.
Yeah, just to name a few, because there's heaps.
There's so many. Each song carried his unmistakable mark, solidifying Queen as one of the most influential bands of all time. Still is.
I Want to Break Free, We Will Rock You, Let Me Go On.
Yes, so many. Despite his fame, Mercury remained intensely private about his personal life. Though he never publicly labelled his sexuality, he lived boldly, embracing androgynous fashion, theatrical performances, and an unmistakable queer energy that resonated with fans worldwide. Mercury unapologetically broke barriers. His presence gave countless LGBTQIA+ individuals the courage to express themselves authentically, proving that artistry and identity could coexist without the compromise. However, and if you know who Freddie Mercury is, and if you don't, where have you been living, or how old are you actually?
Oh, I lied. He passed away in 91.
Yeah.
On November 24th. That's where I get the 4 from. I always get that wrong.
I was, getting there.
Yeah.
Mercury's legacy extends far beyond his music. His untimely passing in 1991 due to complications from AIDS brought global attention to the epidemic at a time when stigma and misinformation ran rampant. They did a great job of showcasing this in the biopic that they did with Rami Malek. I love that movie.
It was really good.
Yeah. His death became a turning point, igniting conversations about HIV and AIDS awareness. In his honour, Queen's surviving members and his loved ones established the Mercury Phoenix Trust, an organisation that continues to raise funds for HIV and AIDS research and support initiatives worldwide.
That's so special.
That is really special. I know that he'd be very honoured and grateful.
Definitely.
Even decades after his passing, Freddie Mercury's impact remains immeasurable. He redefined what it meant to be a rock star, defying expectations and proving that true artistry knows no limits. His music, his presence, and his fearless authenticity continues to inspire generations, both within the community and beyond. Whether through his operatic ballads or his refusal to conform, Freddie Mercury ensured that his voice would never be silenced, and that it has never been. I was going to say. Talking about another icon, which we kind of mentioned him before, and that is the incredible David Bowie. David Bowie is widely regarded as one of the most influential figures not only in the music industry, but also within the queer community, with a legacy that transcends music, fashion, and culture. And I made Jess watch The Labyrinth because of David Bowie.
Yeah, but I currently only remember half of it. We were doing something at the time.
Yeah. Throughout his career, Bowie challenged traditional ideas about gender and sexuality, offering a bold and unapologetic approach to self-expression that continues to resonate today.
It does. So many people are like, oh, it's like a Bowie fashion.
Yeah,
it's
literally.
It's like a Bowie-inspired this.
Yeah. Born David Robert Jones on January 8th, 1947, in London, Bowie began experimenting with his identity early on, both personally and artistically. This exploration of gender fluidity and sexuality was groundbreaking, especially in 1970s where societal norms were rigid and LGBTQIA+ visibility was limited. Bowie's alter ego, Ziggy Stardust, became a symbol of rebellion against these norms, embodying a bisexual, androgynous rock star who embraced flamboyant style, bold makeup, and unpredictable sexuality.
See, so many people are willing to accept a character, but they don't accept the actual person. I don't get it.
I don't get it either. This persona, which emerged in the early 1970s, not only challenged the status quo, but also provided a platform for others to express themselves freely and without shame. Bowie's public acknowledgement of his bisexuality in 1972 was a landmark moment in music history, as it was virtually unheard of for a mainstream artist to be so open about their sexuality at the time. This disclosure, while deeply personal, was also an integral part of his artistic persona. Characters like Ziggy Stardust and the Thin White Duke allowed him to embody fluidity, both in terms of gender and sexuality, giving his audience permission to explore their own identities beyond societal constraints. Bowie's refusal to adhere to conventional gender roles extended to his fashion choices, as he often wore clothes that were seen as feminine or androgynous, such as dresses, skirts, and bold makeup. We also see that today with Harry Styles, so like, good on ya.
Yeah. I also want to point out that when David Bowie and other singular artists, like solo artists, did this, everyone questioned their personality. But when rock stars like Kiss come out in flare pants, high heels, and full face makeup, no one questioned their sexuality.
Exactly. I am like,
Where is
what?
the difference there?
I have no idea. These choices weren't just about fashion, they were about the freedom of self-expression, a philosophy that resonated deeply within the LGBTQIA+ community. His performances, often marked by a mix of masculine and feminine traits, showcase his belief in rejecting fixed labels, and his iconic androgynous aesthetic became a beacon of inspiration for countless queer artists who followed in his footsteps. I think you can half even see that in like Chapel Roan's work.
Oh, yeah.
Bowie's openness about his bisexuality and his embrace of gender fluidity also had a profound effect on the queer music community. He was more than a musical influence, he was a role model for young LGBTQIA+ individuals grappling with their identities in a world that often rejected them. His unbiased nonconformity set a precedent for future queer artists to explore their identities freely without the fear of judgment. Artists like Elton John, Boy George, Annie Lennox, and Lady Gaga have all cited Bowie as a major influence on their work.
Yeah, of course.
Lady Gaga, for instance, has referred to him as her hero, with her own stage personas reflecting the same fluidity that defined Bowie's career.
She also, like when she first came out, had an alter ego.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was
Her Little Monsters ego.
No. It was like Joe someone.
Oh, Joe someone, yeah.
I can't remember the last name.
Neither, but yeah, so
I'm a massive Lady Gaga fan. I can't remember. So
you can see where her influence from Bowie comes from in her art. His legacy, both personal and artistic, remains a cornerstone of queer culture, continuing to inspire and empower generations of the LGBTQIA+ artists. Even after his passing in 2016, Bowie's influence within the queer space has remained vital. His refusal to conform to societal expectations of gender and sexuality opened the doors for greater LGBTQIA+ community representation in the music industry, paving the way for queer artists to occupy spaces once hostile to them.
it's so true though, because once you say, oh, I saw this person do it and they were successful, I can also do it.
Yeah.
You know?
Bowie's music, which frequently touched on themes of rebellion, transformation, and alienation, spoke directly to the experiences of many within the queer community. Songs like Rebel Rebel, Changes, and Space Oddity became anthems for those who felt disconnected from mainstream culture, offering a sense of solidarity and empowerment. David Bowie's legacy is immeasurable. He not only revolutionized music, but also changed the cultural conversation around gender and sexuality, creating a lasting impact on both the queer community and the wider world.
And I just want to put out there that it wasn't just his image that was different. In a time where like the Beatles had come through in the 60s and really solidified like pop and rock to an extent.
Yeah.
And then you had all this like really melodic pop coming through. He kind of had a really different spin on what mainstream music looked like as well, because he sounded so different.
Exactly. Now this last person essentially everybody knows as openly queer and still an incredible icon to this day. And I am, of course, talking about the incredible Elton John.
I love Elton John.
Me too. Elton John is not only one of the most influential musicians of all time, but also a pioneering figure in the LGBTQIA+ community.
Of course.
Whose impact extends far beyond his legendary career in music. His journey within the queer space has been one of visibility, advocacy, and philanthropy, breaking barriers in an area where LGBTQIA+ representation was scarce. In 1976, John made the bold decision to publicly come out as bisexual in an interview with Rolling Stone, a groundbreaking moment in an industry that was often homophobic and exclusionary. By the 1980s, John identified as gay, so he was bi now gay later.
He was bi now gay later.
Fully coming out again in a Rolling Stone interview in 1992, the year before I was born, and you were one.
I was one.
Beyond his personal journey, John's impact on the LGBTQIA+ community has been marked by his tireless activism. In 1992, he founded the Elton John AIDS Foundation, which since raised over $500 million for HIV/AIDS research, prevention and support services worldwide.
It's a lot of dollars.
That is a lot of dollars. His advocacy for LGBTQIA+ rights, same-sex marriage, and HIV/AIDS awareness has been an ongoing mission, using his platforms to push for equality, destigmatization, and social change. One of the most significant milestones in his personal life was his marriage to David Furnish in 2014 after they entered a civil partnership in 2005. Their union was a historic moment, symbolizing the progress made in the LGBTQIA+ legal rights. As a cultural icon, Elton John's flamboyant fashion, theatrical performances, and bold self-expression helped to establish him as an early figurehead of camp and queer aesthetics in pop culture.
And his glasses. It was the glasses.
His songs such as Rocket Man and Goodbye Yellow Brick Road have long resonated within the community and has themes of self-discovery, alienation, and resilience. Although there's like so many more.
So many hits.
So many more.
So many.
The 2019 film Rocket Man, which I also love that film, which openly depicted his queer identity and struggles, further cemented his legacy in the LGBTQIA+ community of storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
Elton John's influence reaches far beyond his contributions to music. His visibility, activism, and decades-long work in the fight against HIV/AIDS, coupled with his status as a queer elder, I love that.
It's so true though, because when you see someone make it, you're like, I could live my life like that.
Yeah, have made him the cornerstone of LGBTQIA+ history. His continued advocacy and lasting cultural impact ensure that his legacy as one of the most important LGBTQIA icons of all time will endure for generations to come.
And it will.
It will.
Like, it's crazy.
He is insane. I know this has been such a long episode and I'm so sorry, but this was me shortening it down.
Yeah. Do you know, there's a lot of queer musicians, especially from the 90s and up now.
Yeah.
So Lauren's going to do a quick run through.
I'm just doing a very quick.
The ones.
So to wrap up this episode, I just wanted to take a moment to highlight just a few of the many influential queer artists who have helped shape the music industry and culture from the early days of rock and roll to the modern era. Joan Jett, of course, born in 1958, is a rock icon and leader of Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, known for hits like I Love Rock and Roll. While she never officially came out, her rebellious punk rock persona has made her a queer icon for decades.
Yeah.
Boy George, born in 1961, became the androgynous frontman of Culture Club with smash hit Karma Chameleon.
Well, I won't sing the rest because I don't want to get sued.
Boy George challenged traditional gender norms in pop culture, solidifying his role as a major figure in the LGBTQIA+ community. Mm-hmm. This one
Well, you wouldn't say he's a singer.
But he does sing.
And
he's quite well known and well off. RuPaul, born in 1960s, initially gained fame with club hits like Supermodel and You Better Work in the late 80s, but later became the global face of drag culture, using her platform to amplify LGBTQIA+ representation worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
In the 1990s, artists like Katie Lang, who came out as a lesbian in 1992, brought queer visibility to the country and pop genre with songs like Constant Craving and Miss Chatelaine. I think that's how you say that.
Yeah.
Michael Stipe, lead singer of R.E.M., came out as queer in late 90s, using his platform to advocate for the LGBTQIA+ rights.
I did not know that.
Neither. George Michael, one of pop's biggest stars, famously came out as gay in 1998 and became the vocal advocate for HIV/AIDS awareness and LGBTQIA+ rights. Moving into the 2000s, Tegan and Sarah, the twin lesbian indie pop duo, we all know, became not just musical icons but strong advocates for the community with rights and visibility in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
Lady Gaga, born in 1986, openly identifies as bisexual and has used her music to become an outspoken advocate for the community, with songs like Born This Way becoming queer anthems.
Yep.
Frank Ocean. I didn't know that one.
I did. I knew Frank Ocean was
I think
queer.
you told me that. Frank Ocean, an R&B singer who came out as bisexual in 2012, earned critical acclaim for his albums Channel Orange and Blonde, becoming a pivotal figure in modern LGBTQIA+ community music culture. In recent years, Janelle Monáe, I knew that one, has embraced her identity as pansexual and non-binary, with albums like Dirty Computer, blending Afrofuturism, pop, and queerness in groundbreaking ways.
Wow.
Lil Nas X, born in 1999, made history as the first openly gay black rapper to dominate the charts with hits like Old Town Road and Montero.
That's so important, I think, because rap is one of those genres that I think still has the stigma. Yeah.
I do agree. And he's just so like, whatever.
Yeah.
Challenging the hip-hop industry's norms with bold queer visuals and messages. Artists like Sam Smith, Adam Lambert, Chappell Roan, and many, many others continue to push boundaries and contribute to the ever-evolving LGBTQIA+ music landscape, solidifying the vibrant, diverse voices that shape today's culture. These artists represent not just musical innovation, but also the power of visibility, advocacy, and the ongoing fight for the LGBTQIA+ rights in every facet of life.
So important, everybody. So important. And one person that you didn't put on there that I know came out as bisexual in the 90s through Rolling Stone magazine was Billie Joe Armstrong from Green Day.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Which is another thing, like Lil Nas X, I feel like in that 90s rock genre, there wasn't a lot of queer voices.
I also didn't put Hayley Williams.
She's not.
Isn't she?
Nah.
Oh, she's just a queer icon for all the queer
They're
ladies.
a Christian band.
Are they?
Paramore are a Christian band.
Little did I know.
Anyway,
Maybe it's
we're
just
not
because
going...
all the lesbians have a crush on her.
Yeah, we're not going around calling people queer who aren't queer here.
No,
but,
we're not.
You know, it's one of those things. If we had to talk about people who inspired queer music, we could be here all day because there is so many.
There's so many. That's what I mean. Like, I shortened this episode and this episode is long.
But finding out who those really pivotal characters are is a great way to embrace the change that they've helped create and see the road that they've paved for other artists to be able to
And I
be
feel
themselves.
like Chappell and Elton recently after the Oscars
They did Pink Pony Club together.
And so I think you can obviously see where Chappell has influence from Elton as well. And I think that she's really paving the way, not only for people within the queer space, but people within that music industry itself.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we hoped you loved that deep dive because it was super deep.
It was super deep.
Lo, you did a great job.
Thank you.
We really hope everyone enjoyed it. And we want to know this week, we're going to put a little question on the end. Who was the first queer musician that you knew of? Because mine was Elton John. Do you know who yours was?
I think mine would have had to be Elton John. I can't think of...
Or Freddie.
Yeah, I don't know, but I think they're both in the same. I know that David Bowie was also up there. So all three of those I mentioned, I don't know.
Well, until next week,
I guess you better remember to stay gay, motherfuckers.
I'm talking about, you're talking about, we're talking about just gay stuff.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Just Gay Stuff. Make sure to follow us at Just Gay Stuff Podcast on all your socials and write to us with your stories at justgaystuffpodcast@gmail.com.